Welcome back to the 626 podcast, guys.
Welcome.
And this week, with multiple cameras, we are on the couch with a special guest. And that man is a golf partner of ours, mine, I guess. And
Yours, because I don't golf.
Don't golf. An entrepreneur, and owner of Fable Heart Media. And that is Nick Leonard.
What's up?
Nick, welcome to your couch.
Thank you, man.
Glad
Happy
to
to be
have
here.
you.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
This is our second run of this. So I think the second intro is going to just be better because the first intro wasn't recorded.
Second intro's banging.
So technology is great. So Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We wanted to have you on because we've talked about this before. Like, you are a creative, you're an entrepreneur. You went from having a nice, normal 9-to-5 job to launching a wedding business to now running an entire media company. So I guess this would be a great opportunity for you to explain that process. But tell us a little about yourself. Tell us like how you got into this crazy mess of a life.
Yeah. So I think probably the smartest place to start is the wedding area. You mentioned, there might be some people that are in the wedding space that are within your circles, and I'm sure that would make sense.
Yeah.
It was a weird roll the dice situation where we said, people were approaching me based on some nonprofit stuff I had been doing in college. They were aware that I was doing video things, but that wasn't my work. And they were asking me for business, and I didn't feel like I could use the portfolio of high school kids to say, hey, look, here's how much you should pay me, right? So it just felt weird. So I was like, well, I'm getting enough of these random inquiries from just people I know. Maybe we try it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where it started. And, I had a good job and had a good bonus. And I took a piece of that and said, all right, let me just buy some gear. And worst case scenario, if I just completely flop and fall on my face, I'm out the 10 grand I spent on tripods and cameras and lenses. And I leaned into it. And I was willing to roll the dice with that. And in that year, I made 50K.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well I had a newborn kid, and having some extra hustle money was good.
That's always nice.
Yeah.
That's sort of how it started. And it also was a creative outlet for me in a place where I was working in hardcore numbers all day, every day.
Yeah. Because you had a safe 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
Doing what
was
exactly?
It 9 to 5 or was it like?
It was not 9 to 5. Nor is it now.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
the 9-to-5 is a myth. Just letting everybody know that now.
Yeah, but at least like your long hours can now be spent in your home.
Yeah, I don't really care. I didn't really mind that. So I'm a puzzle person.
You like working too.
Well, I like solving problems.
Okay, yeah.
It
That's a good way to
gets
phrase it.
me excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I like making clients happy. That I realized that was a really exciting, and I'm sure you guys can relate. When you send over a wedding film and you get that email from that bride or that groom where they said, we all have tears in our eyes, and you just provided like one of the best gifts of my life.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool motivator.
Mhm.
It is.
And you forget about what the invoice was. You forget about how long it took to edit, or how long you were in the shoot, or how long those days were, and your back being hurting and the Advil you took.
Yeah.
That sort of fades away a little bit because you're just like, God, that was okay. I'll do another one.
Yeah.
And
Why not?
that's
One
sort of
more.
how it happens. But it was like that for me in the corporate job too.
Yeah.
It was just less emotional,
Mm-hmm.
right? There were no people with tears in their eyes saying, yeah, I'm interested. In my corporate job, I did a lot of different things, but in the end of the day, I was sort of like an internal consultant
Yeah.
where I would go solve problems for different segments of the business. So I would stand up CRM implementations, customer relationship management. I would build product marketing analytics. I did analytics for every business unit at this company I worked at. We acquired companies. I would rebuild their financial structure and their accounting structure. And I did it fast, but those were creative projects in a way.
Mhm.
I worked well with no direction. I didn't want to be micromanaged. They just said, this is the problem. Nick, can you go do it? And anytime they did that, I was thrilled. And
Now-
I didn't mind working hours.
Now, when you launched, it was called Nick Leonard Creative.
Right.
When you launched this first business, was the motivation like a need for money, or was it just an outlet?
No, I didn't. Honestly, it was a weird time in my life where I was making great money. I did not need money,
Yeah.
but I was working on one side of my brain, and I found that it was creating stress in my life because I needed that creative release. My whole life, I've been a creative person. When I was 8 years old, I learned piano by ear, and I still play it. But there were times where when you're a real creative person, it's an emotional connection for you where it's a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And if you ignore that part of who you are, it can drain you. Like you can feel more depressed, more anxious, more sad, less motivated. Who am I? Like you start introducing a lot of different variables that maybe shouldn't be there in life.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a really good thing because I know a lot of people, like we hear it all the time from creatives, which are like, hey, how do we do what you do? Because I hate my job. I hate what I'm doing. And I always tell them, I'm like, okay, well, why do you hate it? And usually they'll say, it's the hours. I don't like working these hours. I was like, well, you're not going to work better hours. I'm going to tell you that right now. So if it's truly the hours, you're stuck, man. I'm sorry. Welcome to life. You're going to hate the hours no matter where you go. But I was like, what is it actually? And usually they reveal back going into it. Well, I'm a creative. I have a passion for it. I know we talked about on the last podcast. What was it called? Up in the Air. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. There's that scene that floats around on Instagram where George Clooney's character is like, how much did they pay you to give up your dream? And it's like he goes into the clip of like, well, I gave up my dream because of this. And obviously it's Hollywoodized, and I'm not going to like incentivize everybody. If you're into blowing bubbles, you're probably not going to make a career out of that. But like there is a sense of like,
True.
if
You
you're
never
creative and there's a
know.
deep passion for that creativity, there need to find an outlet. And maybe not always is that going to be a paid outlet, but I mean, I think there is a relation to that outlet, having an
Yeah.
outlet.
And I kind of liken it to, runners who just have to, you're a runner, right?
Yeah.
You got to go get out there and
feel
run.
Well, I
like
sure as heck
every
ain't.
single time there's like something about running comes up in an episode and makes me so happy. Anyways, yeah.
Running does not make me happy, but I know
Me
that
Neither
it
does
does
it
for
make me-
runners,
yeah.
right? And they're like, you know what? I just need to go run.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of things. Like for me, I need to be in the woods sometimes. I
Mhm.
need to be in nature, and I need some creative thing. And I sort of always thought that there was just a fixed amount of creativity within me.
Yeah.
Where if I'm like hyper focused on music, then I'm going to play a ton of music
Mm.
and it's going to be great. And I'm going to be really happy and love it. There are times where I put that energy into a wedding film. I might play a lot less music, maybe none at all,
Mm.
because my fixed amount of creativity is only going one direction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't matter to me because I was just doing
Yeah.
something. So the wedding film thing was just opportunity. People were reaching out. And I thought, okay, well, maybe there's something there.
So it was like, let's give it a shot,
Yeah.
you know?
I'm not very risk averse, or I'm very risk averse. No, I'm not risk averse. I don't care about,
Yeah.
risks. I'm like, come on, I'm young,
Yeah.
especially at that
I
time.
can mess up now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really. And what's the worst that can happen? I say that a lot, maybe too much. But
Well,
I said that and I'm like, okay, you know what? Like, look, I got a safe job, dual income.
Yeah.
Right. I'm fine.
yeah.
So what? If I lose 10K, I will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I will be all right. And that I realize that that's not a normal like situation always for people who are trying to start something with their passion. I don't think you needed to spend $10,000 to do that, but I didn't want to ease. I'm not like a crawl, walk, run kind of person.
Yeah.
For me, I would rather save the 10K than go do it. And in that period that I'm saving, I'm planning, I'm analyzing, I'm consuming content. I'm doing everything I can to say, all right, when that 10K is in my bank, I'm running. And I like
if you're
that.
gonna do it, you're gonna do it big, and you're gonna like go for it
yeah, I
rather
don't-
than just like, let me just dip my toe in it for a second.
Yeah.
That's the thing I love, like, because people often be like, well, I just want to dangle my feet over it and try to see if it's going to work. And I'm like, well, you're not going to know if it's going to work if you just dangle your
You'll
feet.
never know.
Don't be a toe dipper, y'all.
Yeah. Like, you have to go all in or not. And, like, that's the reality. And, like, there is a risk to it. Like,
And then sometimes it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes when you look at that and you say, okay, maybe going all in would hurt me financially,
Mhm.
or it would put me in a risk, situation where there's more risk than I can afford to have.
Yeah.
Just like an investment, that's all it is. You shouldn't do that. Right. And you should know what those limits are. But yeah, I just decided I like doing this. I think it would be fun, a good way to kind of exercise the right side of my brain. I'm using the left side all the time.
Yeah.
And it was fun.
Now, this started like your entrepreneur back because we've shared stories about our high school days of like selling stuff. Like, we've prefaced what we're selling, preface that. we were selling like candy and like I was selling drinks and other things. And like I had a whole like
He said
store.
drinks. I thought he was supposed to say drugs. I was like, what?
Surprise, I'm confessing. No, we used to sell different stuff in like high school. We were entrepreneur based. Like we would try to find ways to make money. I was taking the $20 I got for a week for lunch money because that used to get you lunch for a week. And
From
I was
Taco Bell.
yeah, well, darn right. Taco Bell. I was balling. I would go to Taco Bell.
Not
It's a lot of
anymore.
tacos.
Yeah, $20. I'd
Unfortunately.
walk into Taco Bell. I'd be able to eat for like $5 for the whole week, and then the rest of it was going to like stuff to sell. So,
Mhm.
but you had a similar background. You were doing stuff like that. But like, what sparked this entrepreneur like nature in you? Do you know, or like?
I'm not sure all of my motivations were overly healthy. If I'm being really candid,
I mean, that's
How
probably that's
self-aware of you.
probably self-aware about capitalism in general. So that's fine.
But it was less about the hunger for money and more about the need to not be poor.
Yeah,
So
Does
out
that
of
make
fear.
sense? More of a chip on the shoulder
Okay.
variable.
Mhm.
Fear is definitely a variable that started everything. But I think for me, it was really, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I was aware that we didn't have a lot of money. I had a really amazing parent that was open with it. And when I mean open, I said, what's going on? I know something's going on. He says, we owe more money than we make.
yeah,
And he opened it up. We were in Excel together and I was 6.
yeah,
So that was very shaping. It was a seminal moment for me for sure. And there was fear in that moment. But there's a lot of kids who grow up poor that don't know it.
yeah,
I just wasn't one of them. I don't think my sister quite knew how little money we had, or that our neighborhood wasn't the nicest, or that it wasn't normal to have that amount of crime on our street. Or do you know what I mean? Like you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You live in your
Yeah.
little box and you sort of move on, right?
Yeah.
But I knew. I always knew. I knew I didn't have the name brand shoes. I got bullied by the kids who were more poor than me that had the name brand shoes.
it's all a hierarchy in the end.
Oh my god.
It is. So like I just was aware of that. And that was my motivation for a lot of it. I'm like, tell you what, I'm gonna afford those shoes one day.
Mm.
Right? I'm gonna have a nice house. I'm never gonna have I had a theory. I didn't realize that this didn't work. When I was a little kid, I said, I am going to pay cash for everything my entire life. I didn't realize you need debt.
Yeah,
But my objective was to make and save so much money that I could buy everything in cash.
Yeah.
And that was my goal. So I had this.
and then you met the U.S. housing market.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't. Right. You can't. But yeah, when I was 6 years old, I asked for a safe. I circled it in the JCPenney's catalog. I still have it. It was a 2-combination safe. And I
Oh, I thought you meant the JCPenney catalog.
I thought you
was
meant the ad too. I was like, you should
That's
frame
impressive.
no, I have the actual safe.
Yeah, that's better
Um,
than the.
That
ad.
is, yeah.
And
That's
I budgeted everything and I bought myself the stuff I wanted to
Yeah.
have. I bought the first Xbox that came out with my own money.
Mhm.
Those kayaks in the garage, I bought one of them when I was 12.
Wow.
Really?
That kayak is from 2001.
and still kicking.
Well, it doesn't look like it is.
Well, so I showed up to my dad and I was
Mhm.
like, I opened my safe and I found like audits in there. I was such a weird child, obviously. But like I went to my dad with this massive wad of cash. Cause if you got like a grand in
Yeah.
cash as a child, there's a lot of ones in there. And it took you years to get that. And that's couch surfing for money. That's, finding money on the
babysitting,
street.
Yeah.
That's
all
mowing
stuff,
grass.
yeah.
That's selling stuff at school, all sorts of stuff. So yes, I hustled for that. But I handed them some big wad cash. I said, take me to Black Creek Outfitters. I wish they still existed in
R.I.P.
Jackson.
Oh,
RIP. And I said, I
I'm gonna
want you.
buy me a kayak.
Here's where it was awesome. Speaks to my dad and what a cool parent. Again, we had no money. He was like, did you consider that maybe as a 12-year-old, I wouldn't let you just go out in open water by yourself in a boat? And I was like, no. So he was like, I had no idea that you were saving all this money. I had no idea you had that. And by the way, I was only like 25% of what I had saved. Like I
Yeah.
saved a ton.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'll buy a kayak and a rack. And the other boat was the boat he couldn't afford and paid off for 3 years.
Oh,
Isn't
Good
that
dad.
awesome?
That's good parenting, though.
Amazing parenting.
Yeah.
So the hustle kind of started when I was 6.
Wow.
And I sold warheads in middle school. And I would go to the dollar store, buy 10 pieces of
Yeah.
candy for $1.
What
But
the
all of it was a
heck?
negative. It was a chip on your shoulder motivation, which
Yeah.
I have since realized
Yeah.
not healthy, but I liked it. It was fun. The hustle was fun.
Yeah. And we've talked about this. Is like this is all existing before hustle culture, so you can't brag about it on Instagram. I know
Yeah.
it comes later, but I think
Yeah.
there's I think there's a lot to that because like we've talked about on like a parenting episode, we've talked about parenting and like one of the things I always pick up, and this sounds stupid. I always pick up like money on the ground, whether I see it. And this is dumb.
He
Like,
picked up a quarter the other day.
but like oftentimes on set, I'll be the guy and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, there's a penny over there. I got to get it. And they're like, well, it's a penny. Who cares? And I'm like, well, I want to teach my kid that money matters. Like, no matter how little, like, there's got to be that respect to it. Because I often, like, when we get people asking about, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, what's the tip? The tips that always get glazed, when I always offer advice, the stuff that gets immediately passed over is have a budget, have a plan, like, have like some respect for cat, like these things. It's always jumping straight to, well, I just want the clients. And I'm like, okay, but if you can't manage the money coming in and going out, the clients are going to be irrelevant because it's just not going to matter.
Yeah.
And like, I think there's like this beauty in like a child, like learning early on in a like age, okay, if I save, I can have money, I can spend it on this much, and like understanding, because I really do not think that's a concept that like comes to some people easily, but to others, it just, money somehow baffles people. And it's interesting to me how it does that. And I don't know, I'm sure there's long reasons we can get into, but I've just always found that interesting of how like some people it just is glossed over. That's not the part they care about. And I really respect that because you immediately went into, when you launched Nick Leonard Creative, you had 10 grand. You said, I'm going to try to double this. I'm going to try to make this money back. And then you made 50. Like what went into, I guess let's jump into that part. What went into, all right, how I'm going to make this back? Like, how did you break that down? Or did you just say, I'm going to just take on weddings until I hit 10 grand?
So in the 10 grand scenario, the Nick Leonard Creative scenario, it's a lot less complicated.
Yeah.
Because
which is why I started with it.
Technically, I could do it on my own.
Yeah.
It would be a hard day. Second shooters, God bless you. But I could. So overhead costs, other than the 10 grand, zero.
Yeah.
Software expenses, zero.
Then yes.
I built my website in Dreamweaver.
Yeah. Oof. Old school.
Yeah. Banged it out, right? It was, just straight up HTML and CSS.
Yeah.
I had never done that before. Well, I did one other.
Yeah.
So, you just.
Were you self-taught in all this stuff?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh
I had no training in any of that.
No Full Sail debt or anything like that?
No, I never took a course. No training in videography. No, I had a little experience in the nonprofit world. We had done some pretty cool stuff, and I did it because I thought it would be good for the program.
Because this is what, 2013, 14?
13 is when I started Nick Leonard.
So YouTube's a thing. So were you doing a lot of YouTube videos or just kind of poking around?
No, I looked at, I can remember I watched Philip Bloom. Philip Bloom. And I really learned.
Any Andrew Kramer?
Yeah.
Use more After Effects.
No, I looked at his site. I still get Video Copilot emails to my personal email address.
Oh, wow.
I taught myself Cinema 4D. I taught myself After Effects, Premiere.
Yeah.
But it was partly because it was a new problem to solve and it was fun. I like puzzles.
Yeah.
The other part was just a little bit can really level up a lot.
Yeah.
So it was about incremental value in really achievable ways.
Yeah.
But really, I did it because I thought it would be fun. I thought it would be a really cool side hustle. I thought I could do it well.
Yeah.
I naturally had a storyteller kind of mind. And at the time, narrative wedding films were not crazy popular.
No. They were not.
At the time, there was still a lot of, like, the packages were crazy. Do you want your whole day?
Yeah.
Here is 18 hours of
footage.
Straight recording.
Yep.
And then, which is not too different than what our parents had at their wedding videos, if they had one. We put the VHS in, and let's fast forward to the moment that was good.
The whole thing.
And that was a part of a package. And do you want the ceremony? That's an add-on. Do you want the reception and the speeches? That's an add-on. I felt like that was crazy. And I'm like,
no, you're right there with you.
Hold on, you have all that footage. Most of it's already cut up. Just give it to me.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the approach I took. Mm-hmm. Where the first 2 weddings I did completely for free.
Oh, well.
Which I would maybe advise against. I think someone gave me $200 out of pity.
Yeah.
And I'm still connected with them, and I love them to this day for that. But I did, and by the way, this is after I spent the $10K.
Oh, well.
I did 2 weddings for free. And
Like by yourself,
No.
you as the videographer, or you did 2 weddings like as a second shooter for
no,
free?
those were my clients.
Wow.
And I was very clear about what I was giving them. I was going to give them a wedding film. It was going to be a full edit story. Basically the cinematic highlight of the day, right? The trailer. And I was licensing music. I was throwing it all there, just everything that people do now. And then I was giving them a 3-camera ceremony cut.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then I recorded the speeches and all that stuff. But in that, my first 2 weddings, I did on the same exact day.
Wait, what?
They were the same day.
What?
The 2 weddings?
Yeah.
Oh,
How
wow.
did you do 2? How did you do
So
that?
my sister was with me, and I said, okay, one was in the morning. It was like a brunch wedding, and the other was like a normal wedding that started
Yeah.
around, noon and then went till 1 a.m. or whatever.
Is this why Sam is so
Oh
traumatized
my-
when I mention weddings?
Oh, Nick.
But it was just opportunity. I'm like, wow.
Or he's stressing out?
And then from those 2 wedding films, I think I got 8 or 9 clients.
Oh my gosh.
That's great though.
Yeah.
That-
And
that's-
but the smartest thing I did, I think, was my friend at the time, Megan Martin. Shout out to Megan Martin. She's still awesome. She was one of the most premier wedding planners in Jacksonville. And I said, Megan, I'm trying to break into this. Can I do a promo film for you?
oh, it's smart.
And
That's super smart.
throw me on the vendor list. And I got a lot of business from that.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's the thing that like people always miss in the business is they're focused on the clients and forget
Be
like you got to network with the
friender,
vendors.
y'all.
That's
Be the
everything.
friend.
Be a
Frienders.
friender.
But you know what though? I learned that really goes well beyond that. So the whole top of mind factor is, of course, the quality of the results that you do is good, but people say people forget your home runs.
Mhm.
They don't forget their friends. So just helping someone for no reason is nice. And if it's low impact and you can afford to do it, it will come around, So
That's good advice.
and in the wedding industry, if a lot of people are so transactional, right?
To say the least.
Yeah, we had great photographers that we worked with that also recommended us. Everyone was recommending us because we just helped them out. We'll set up a light for you while we're there. Do you need help doing this? Here's a couple extra batteries. Hey, I brought an extra granola bar. Do you need it? Can I go get you water? You don't have it in your contract that you get a hot meal. I'm getting you a hot meal.
Do you mean be a decent person?
Yeah.
It's-
But working at it,
Yeah.
that is above and beyond stuff
Yeah.
that maybe a lot of people just focused on their little tasks. They're
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
working
but
with the
you're like
blinders
thinking
on.
of others and you're being
Looking for
inclusive.
it.
Yeah.
Look at what can I do for that person?
Yeah.
And being proactive about it really is what
It makes a
scaled it.
difference.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if your work is good and you treat people good, get a little luck, good things happen.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
how like for our second shooters, because we have a lot of second shooters we use, and 90% of what I look for in a second shooter is just being a decent person who's fun
Yeah.
to work with.
Yeah.
Because if the bride and groom and the couples have fun, if my vendors are happy, then like I can teach generally the rest.
Hmm.
Like, and that's a big part of it. Now, I don't want to get hung up on weddings because
Okay.
at some point you were like, this is exhausting. I've done this.
Hmm.
You're still working the other
My back
job. Was there
hurts.
yeah. Was there at any point a thing where you were like, I want to do this full time and not your other job? Like I want to be just making wedding videos? Or was that always like, this is only going to be a side gig?
For me, it just wasn't possible.
Yeah.
The challenge with wedding videos is that I always take everything down to dollar per hour.
Yeah.
And I also care about quality. And I knew that there was a natural weakness there.
Yeah.
Because I was spending so much time ensuring a perfect result for the client, my dollar per hour was ever shrinking.
Yeah.
It was going down every second I spent on it. So if I'm only charging, and by the way, I was a more expensive wedding vendor
Yeah.
than most in the city. So
Mhm.
for me to show up, it was around $5,000
Yeah.
in 2015.
Which
So-
is a lot.
It was a lot then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people were charging $1,000
Yeah.
for a whole day.
Yeah.
So there was a big differentiator there. But I took it down $1 per hour. I'm spending a ton of time on this.
Mhm.
And if I am not getting paid for the time, then it doesn't financially make sense. And I realized I tried having other people edit. I've never had anyone not be there because my name was on it, but the dollar per hour just stopped making sense. I couldn't scale it.
Yeah.
The way we were filming,
Mm-hmm.
I would have to cut something,
Mm-hmm.
have to cut quality in order to introduce quantity.
Yeah.
I just wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
So it did prove to me that I could be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of a perfect storm where at my job, I also learned the skills that I just had to have to start Fable Heart Media, where I learned what a P&L was. I
Yeah.
learned how to forecast a statement of cash flows and a balance sheet. I learned how to prove that what I did affected revenue.
You really just filled your toolbox.
It was a toolbox thing. And I worked for every sector of the company. So every single business unit that we had, I analyzed it for maximizing profitability. So you learn what products don't work, what products do work, when to offer a discount, when the discounts don't convert, when customers have churn, all of that stuff. I was helping to come up with that stuff. So I mean, it's just invaluable. And you couple that with, I know I can make money on the outside and people are approaching me about all these other things. I just roll
It
the
was
dice.
just a given.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. And honestly, I don't like stepping over solvable problems at work. And I just had to do that a lot.
Yeah.
And eventually I'm just like, all right, put up or shut up. Go fix those problems yourself.
Now, where did the idea for Fable Heart come from? Like, where did it spark to want to do a media company?
Same reason why I did for weddings. People would approach, hey, I know you do videos. You don't happen to also build websites, because I love your website. Okay. No, but I'm willing to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So we built 2 or 3 sites under Nick Leonard Creative and never told anyone
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
to learn it.
that's
And what I was analyzing there was, who can I trust to help me do this? How long does it take? What should I charge? What are the bottlenecks? What are the processes that would fail, prevent me from scaling it? Could we actually produce quality work that's better than other people? I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, could I hold my work up against seasoned web pros? And if the answer was no, call a spade a spade. I shouldn't be doing this, right? The answers happen to be yes for those things. So I'm like, okay, tick. And then people would ask, hey, would you consider managing my social? Yes. Same thing. Let's figure that out.
Yeah.
I did advertising for my own company, learned a lot of that. I also managed each of those components in the company I worked at. It was just a perfect storm.
So you launched Fable Heart Media when? 2000. It was like 2019, 2020.
Yeah, 2019. So, okay. So I sold my very first client for Fable Heart Media while I was working at my corporate gig.
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave because the corporate company I was working at sold websites. They sold advertising. They sold social media. They sold the stuff I was doing.
Yeah.
Couldn't stay. Because I was in finance, I knew there was a layoff coming and I was
Yeah.
helping to plan that. And the first thing I did after I sold the client was I interviewed executives at the company I was close with.
Oh, wow.
And I asked them, am I making a mistake? Tell me straight up. I make good money. I know I
Yeah.
can make more in a corporate environment and be financially just totally set, right? Am I screwing up? And every one of them said, no, you need to
Yeah.
go do this.
Which is interesting because I feel like a lot of people are very like when you're in like this cushy position, not cushy, cushy's not the right word, but like safe. Is that
That's
the
pretty
right word?
cushy. I mean, it was
Well,
pretty cushy at the time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because it was, then that made it tough because I'm like, I'm running for money.
Yeah.
I'm not just walking. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like, now I'm
Yeah.
actively ignoring a good salary.
Yeah. To go out on your own and
Yeah.
spread your little baby bird wings and see if it
And
works.
not even just the salary, like the benefits.
Yeah.
You're a dad. I know you've gone through a major life change at this point. Like,
Yeah. So
there's a lot happening.
the
Yeah.
prior year, I got divorced.
Yeah.
I had a 2-year-old child.
Ugh.
I had just found a place to live. And I was actively planning on leaving this company at the same time. So within 12 months,
That's
nothing
so
was the same.
much.
Yeah, it was too much.
And it was a great year because the next year in 2020, everything was perfectly normal.
Yeah. Had I known, I don't know. Like I said, I'm risk averse, but I just believed in it. I knew I just believed I could do this.
Yeah.
I don't know why. False sense of confidence. I probably shouldn't have been that confident, but I did. And so I told the client. So I asked all the executives that I met, and some of which CFO of the company. I mean, big titles. Tell me if I'm going to screw up. And they all said, no, you need to do this. So I asked them to put me on the layoff list, and they did.
How many times do you hear that? Hey, put me on the layoff list. Get me out of here.
Me.
Yeah, I wanted severance. You know,
I don't want to be on here anymore, which is smart. I mean, that's a smart strategy. Get the severance, get out if you know that's coming. So
yeah,
you do Fable Heart Media. Are you bringing people with you? Are you like, hey, I'm jumping ship alone? Like, how do you build that? Because you're a team now. There's multiple people.
Yes. So part of that time, that discovery time, I spent finding people I could trust. And that was without question our biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And we made some mistakes.
Yeah.
We engaged with people that we should not have engaged with. And that's a lesson learned, right? Sometimes you say, oh, I know how to do this. Okay. You seem like a good person. I needed to learn how to vet people better. And that was without question our biggest barrier. And we made mistakes initially. Now, fortunately, all those mistakes were caught early. They never impacted the client and didn't affect the company outside of I had to catch and fix stuff a lot.
Yeah.
I was also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, my best friend from college happened to approach me saying, hey, we should start an agency. And I'd already started the process.
Yeah.
So I brought Mike in as a partner in the company and said, okay, let's boogie together. So I wasn't alone. And that, I don't think I could have done that without him, as well as the other people who were really strong to help build that. So yeah, it was a lot less scary, but again, I had already planned the layoff.
Yeah.
So I was moving regardless,
Yeah, but
it made it a hell of a lot easier. So I left in April 4th of 2019. Mike was June 1st. Very fast.
And then I know I started helping you guys make some launch videos shortly after all that.
You're a huge part of my launch.
Right in the very
So
beginning.
that launch, those launch videos generated a ton of business for us.
Yeah.
Because we told the story that you're hearing now.
Yeah.
The whole, I don't want to step over the solvable problems. You've heard the script.
Yeah, I've heard solvable problems a few times.
A billion times. But it really is the motivator,
No.
right? So like as businesses scale, the big ones, there's just sacrifices there. Quality cannot be maintained.
Yeah.
Customer experience cannot be maintained at a massive level.
Yeah.
We were publicly traded at the time. So cash at the top of the funnel was everything. Everything. So you have to make choices, and I didn't like making those.
I think what always stuck out to me when we did that when I first met you guys and like talked through everything, what I remember sticking out, we were in your kitchen, wherever you were staying at the time, we were in a kitchen, and you gave me kind of the elevator pitch of Fable Heart, which I've now heard probably a dozen times because
Sorry.
if we're on set, I always tell Nick, I'm like, I'll break down, you go make more business because that means I get to have some more work. So, and like I've heard the pitch and I've heard it go through. But what stuck out to me was that you believe the pitch. Because I hear a lot of the times, like when you start doing business, like you'll start to get into, you're going through the motions, at least I found. Sometimes you can fall into where you're just doing the motions. But it felt like you believed the pitch. And I remember leaving that and going, okay, what are we doing? Because what do I still believe in what we're doing? Because otherwise I can just go do something else. Like I have a master's degree. Like I have a background in a lot of stuff. Like I could walk away from this and go find a job and be fine. Granted, this is before 2020.
Yeah.
And like that made me reevaluate what I was doing because it gave okay, well, I need to believe in what I'm selling. Otherwise it's not going to keep going. And I thought that was a respected thing of like, you believed what you were selling, whether or not it was a facade. I mean, you seemed like you believed it. Sounds like you had to.
I really did. Okay. So that's why I get excited.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is an amazing thing that we can do. And I'm very pumped about it.
Which I feel like you would want your person to be excited, if you have
people like working with passionate people.
Yeah. Cause like, I wouldn't want to hire someone to like do our social or do whatever if they're just like, yeah, sure.
The same is true for like weddings, right? When you interview a couple and they meet you and they hear the true love that you have for not just your craft, but for the emotions that are resulting from your end. I mean, that people like, oh yeah, I want to work with that.
I like
Yeah.
the way you phrase that, interview couple, because you've said interview client before. Like, what do you mean when you're saying like interview them?
A discovery phase.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is I would never sign, if someone says, hey, we need a wedding, our budget's this, I would say, I would love to spend 15 minutes to get to know you a little better.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure we're a good fit. I'll explain our process. I'll explain the payment terms. I'll answer any questions that you have. I'll explain what the day is going to feel like, what it's going to look like, and what you're going to get as a result. I'll also help you inform your budget. I'll also make sure that if you would like, I can vet and recommend other vendors as a part of that process.
Yeah.
15 to 30 minutes of your life. And there were some people who were unwilling to do that and just wanted the transaction. I didn't accept them
Yeah.
as
Yep.
clients.
Same. That is a big thing that I think people don't get when they first start. Is we hear the horror stories of a bad client, and a lot of it's because
You get
I'll
hung up
always
on-
ask, "Did you interview?" And they
Yeah.
go, "Well, no, they offered, and I just wanted to book." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I
Mm-mm.
have to meet with them." Like we
But
get a
that
lot
was
of the
also
times.
lessons learned over time too.
Yeah, and we get a lot of like moms that'll call and be like, "I want to book," and I'm like, "Well, I need to meet the couple."
Yeah.
Like, and I got to meet you. I want to make sure we're a fit, because a lot of the times you're just calling and we're gonna have a disconnect of like what you're wanting and what I'm offering, and you're gonna be like, "Why isn't this what I want to make sure we're in that fit." Do you take that on to clients? So you do it with brides and grooms, like for wedding stuff, but do you take that into clients as well now?
It's more important now, I think, mainly because we learned, this is another lesson learned, that a bad, or I don't want to say bad, but an unhealthy client relationship
Yeah.
can really affect the culture of the company,
Oh yeah.
right? We're very deeply ingrained within our clients' businesses. We go to their office, we wear their shirts and their hats. We are effectively employees of their companies for the big relationships, and even the small ones. We feel that way. So if you have a client who's unable to have a healthy email dialogue, or is unhealthy over the phone and how they're, treating someone, that person will want to leave.
Yeah.
And I can't have them leave over something like that. So I will just
Yeah.
I'll sever the relationship or I'll leave. Fortunately, we haven't had too many of those, but there have been
Yeah.
two.
That's the thing. Like people, when you get very wrapped up and afraid to say anything to a client, and I've had those conversations. That's one of the things again I bring up, which is like, I have a lot of freelance buddies who will like take jobs because it's just cash came up, they were offered, they'll take it, and then this is a disaster. I hate this project. Like I hate this client. It's awful. Like I don't know what to do. And I'm like, one, you got to be able to say no to a client, and two, you got to be willing to turn them down if they don't fit. Like it's great to fake it till you make it. That's all great stuff. But sometimes the client is asking something of you that you're just not connecting with, and don't ever, like, you'll feel it in the gut, but a lot of it's going to be, you'll say something. This is how I always see it playing out, is like, you'll say, yeah, this is what I'm offering. And the client will go, yeah, this is what I want. Da, da, da. And then you've said again, usually, and this is my indicator, is if on the third time I've said, here's what we're going to do, and they're still repeating back what they want, I'm usually like, I'm not sure this is going to work. Because if we're not on the same page here with what I'm offering and what you're wanting, we're not going to get better, because you keep saying yes and then telling me what you want, but I'm telling you what you're getting. And that's usually my red flag. But I know that that's such an important thing that people miss, is like, you are interviewing your client. You are interviewing like, just like you're going to interview your employees.
Yeah.
You're going to interview who you're going to bring into the business.
Because you're trying
and
to
like,
see who's a good fit.
yeah, because that can railroad a business. Like
Yeah.
I know agencies that I know multiple agencies whose their entire business is built around one client. And I've also watched those agencies, when that one client folds, the agency folds.
Yeah.
And it's like, and the reason they're built on that one client is not so much money. It's because that client's demands are so great and their relationship is so toxic that they can't afford to leave them. And they
Yeah,
can't
it's easy
separate.
for that to happen. And I think the opportunities for someone taking advantage of you, or
Yeah.
someone not treating you well, or someone pushing you beyond what you're actually contracted to do, happens because of a lack of process,
Yep.
period. Right?
Bingo.
So if it is very clear to the client, here's how we engage, here's the forms of communication that we have. We've laid, like for us, we're very much project management heavy, right?
Yeah.
Here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Or here is sprint for the next 14 days for ongoing work. Here's the next 14 days. Here's 30, 60, 90, and then 12 months.
Yeah.
Right? When the client kind of knows what the bookends are, right? What the limits are within the conversation or the relationship, they typically stay within that. It's when you don't have that, that you
Yeah.
have opportunities that should never even be considered show up. So an example would be if, let's say you're doing content creation for someone and you have a retainer to do Instagram video work for them every single month, right? If you don't explain how far in advance you need, when you're shooting, the type of content that needs to be documented and recommunicated often.
Yeah.
The turnaround times, what sort of gear that you're bringing, who's on set, what are the additional outside expenses that are always incremental, right? That just has to be an open and transparent thing. If you really are open about it, there's no reason to have an emotional reaction to any of that by either party.
Yeah.
It's not emotional.
Mhm.
It's just process.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no reason to push that beyond. Sorry, not a part of the process. Would you like to have us re-quote our relationship to account for this new scenario?
Yeah.
It's really just impartial.
Yeah.
Just part of it. So
I like
process
how
everything.
I like how you professionally said that too. It's not a case of like you're not emotionally getting on there and going, this isn't what we talked about. I'm angry. Da da da.
There's really no room for it because
Yeah.
you've just created such a structure where it is cool. You're on phase 3. You're asking for stuff that's at phase 6. Would you like us to pause the project and reevaluate where we're going? Or would you like us to keep progressing to get to phase 6 and then pick back up where you're starting?
Yeah.
No big deal. Not personal. And they say, no, we can keep going.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, 9 times out of 10,
I love that.
they're fine with it.
I love that.
But a lot of times, and maybe this is like an executive profile thing. A lot of times, especially if you're working with big clients or, people who are throwing around a lot of money for your services, there is a weird unspoken, you almost feel like you're in servitude to them, right? Where it's like, well, hold on, I'm paying you all this cash.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Nope. You're hiring me to do these things. Here are the things. That is not a one-time discussion. Revisiting, here's where you are in the process. Reminds them what you've done, what you have left to do.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah.
So for our large projects, which can take more than a year to fulfill sometimes, every week we revisit, here's where we are. Here's what we did last week. Here's what we're doing this week. Here's what we're doing over the next 14 days. Here are the bottlenecks in the process. Here's what we need from you in order to improve that. Without that transparency, people wonder, what are you doing? What are you working on? Right? How do I know that this is my money's being spent well and you're being a good agent of my cash? And then emotions just show up. Process gets rid of that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the part that's overlooked. I know I overlooked it in the beginning. It was processes and systems were they're boring. Let me make videos.
It's how you scale.
Yeah.
You cannot scale based on the quality of your work.
Yeah.
It's a crazy thing to say out loud. That's not how you grow. You grow because you can handle that quality more than once.
That was really good.
Do you know what I mean? So like you can be the master craftsman, but if you don't know how to make the clients realize what goes into that, you don't know how to make that process efficient, you don't know how to make them understand what their money is going towards and really believe it yourself, you're just a hobbyist.
Let me ask you, like, what goes into finding a client? Like, how do you go about that on your end?
You know what? So I'm the only sales person at FableHeart. I'm the only person doing biz dev, bringing in clients and growing the company from a revenue standpoint.
I think Sam and Michaela would give great pitches, though. You'd be hilarious.
I've been involved. Yeah, Sam, I do bring in
Yeah.
on some things because she is just an absolute rock star, and she also understands the problems we're trying to solve. We don't recommend moving into a new relationship if everyone doesn't believe that there is a problem that needs to be fixed. So you can prospect all day long, right? You can find couples or you can find clients, you can find whatever you're looking for in your business, but qualifying the lead, very important. And for qualifying the lead, I mean political alignment. I mean levels of communication. I mean personal differences. I want to know how often they communicate, the frequency. I ask them these things, right? Or I feel it out based on, and I have a little spreadsheet that I actively score the relationship.
I like that. That's
Which I mean,
interesting.
that's smarter to do, like vet it up front, and then you don't have to find these things later, and it be a hassle for both parties.
Huge waste of time.
Yeah.
So the downside with small business scaling is knowing where to focus. So one of the things that we really focused on initially was how do we make our processes as lean as possible so we can produce high quality work at scale? That was the very first thing I did before our first client. And I modeled it out. So for example, if you were to ask me, how long does it take to build a 14-page website at a really high level? I will tell you the design phase is 23.5 hours.
Wow.
We measured it. And we constantly iterate how long it takes to do these things so that we can perfect the process.
Yeah.
The faster we do it, the faster we can make sure communication is not lacking, all that stuff. So that's got to be there. When the prospect hears that, they're just like, oh, thank God. Thank God someone who's not just like, oh, how
Yeah,
much
I
money
do
you got?
stuff.
I can do stuff for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So it's got to be pretty structured. We prospect we get leads from advertising. We get leads from personal relationships. We get a lot of that. We get leads from networking. I do a ton of it. I think this month I've been to 5 events.
Wow.
In person. I'm wearing a sport coat or a suit. So, you know, when I hear hustle, that's hustle.
That's what
Get out there and
hustle
do it, right?
Yeah.
But you can't, if you feel like you're having to educate your value and convince someone they have a problem that you have to solve, you're wasting your time.
That's really good.
Dang.
That's a good line.
That'll post.
I want to shift gears for a second and go back to personal stuff real fast.
Okay.
Because you started the business, and I think we talked about this before when we first mentioned doing the podcast. I was like, yeah, you know, you picked a good time to start. And you're like, did I? And I was like, you launched your business in the middle of a pandemic after a major life change. At any point facing all this, and you had a lot of shifts, you got rid of people, that things didn't work out, there were people leaving. Did at any point in this were you like, I should quit? This was a really bad idea.
Never, I should quit. Never, this was a bad idea. It's always just a new problem.
Yeah.
That might be a weakness in me, to be honest. I'm not sure that's a smart thing all the way. Sometimes you got to know, wait a minute. I'm almost always believing in a path out. It's got to be pretty dire for a path not to emerge. But I'm constantly analyzing the business.
Yeah.
I'm constantly forecasting the bank statements, the cash flow. I'm forecasting the revenue we have planned, the revenue I think we might get, the likelihood of getting that revenue. I'm in there pulling those levers constantly.
Yeah.
The closer you are to the numbers, the more you know where the opportunities are, the more you know where the risks are. So that always makes you feel better. And if you're always kind of working, the dependency on that one relationship is a lot less significant. But there have been many times where there's been fear. It's been scary. It's been, how is this going to affect us? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Last year, we had one particular client basically go financially insolvent.
Mm-hmm.
Huge relationship. Okay. Had nothing to do with quality, nothing to do with what we could do. That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you do to change, right? So you look at your existing relationship, your existing pipeline, your existing costs. You have to make choices. So we're always making those choices. We're always pulling those levers. But the more proactive you are, the less opportunity that fear has to come live within the culture of your company. It's hard though. You do have to constantly combat that.
Yeah.
Especially now, because like even now that the climate is weird economically.
Yeah.
And it 2020 for us was probably, it was weird. It was a strange time to launch a business, but we tripled earnings that year.
Yeah.
Just worked out that way. So there have been plenty of times of fear. When we first started the company, I'll tell you this. So when we first started, I left my company. Severance was running out in July. I'd sold one business and their parent company. They saw so much value in the child company that the parent company said, okay, let's do this bigger. We got our first 9 months of revenue in our first 30 days. It just worked out that way. That is not because we're good entrepreneurs. That's not because we're great fulfillers or creators. It just was luck.
Yeah.
And that was, all right, let's boogie. You know, that was the moment where like,
I
all
mean,
right,
it gives you a little oomph, you know?
not me.
Really?
Nope. That's the pressure. I get oomph when I get results.
Ah.
Oh, nice.
Nope. I'm saying you sign a contract. I'm like, okay. It's almost like you're at the starting marker of a very long race.
Yeah.
Okay.
The finish line is where we're cheersing.
Okay.
I'm not cheersing when I ink a deal.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not afraid of it either. I believe in what we can do, but it is hardcore. Let's go to work now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's just how that worked out. But there were a lot of the way we structured our invoices, which we have changed since then. But the way we structured our invoices were we were doing a lot of content creation and blog writing based on site visits. So each site visit had a dollar value attached to it,
Yeah.
and it was fairly large. We had 30 of them planned. So it was a big project, and we knew that would take the better part of a year. And I planned that all out in my pitch.
Yeah.
So very detailed pitch, but it took us a while to get that first contract. Meanwhile, no invoices. Still got a kid. Just finished the divorce.
Yeah.
Right. All that's happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was pretty scary.
Yeah.
Oh.
Jeez.
The bank account balance was freakishly low,
Oof.
but then we just got a whole bunch of really big checks all at once. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
thank God. By the way, those checks hit on Thanksgiving Day.
Nice.
So just
You were
ahead
very
of-
thankful.
just ahead of Christmas.
Thankful.
It was just scary. But
Yeah.
even in that moment, I didn't think I made a mistake. I was like, no, it's not like they're not going to pay that.
Now, let me ask you this as we start to wrap up here. I mean, because we can go forever, but what would you tell like somebody starting out wanting to launch a business? What are the things that you've learned through this process that you're like, hey, these are the things you need to do if you're starting out?
Okay, so I do not believe as high quality as all of our work is,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe in the quality of the work of everyone sitting here, that there isn't someone else out there that could also do this. Right? It's the whole everyone's replaceable concept. It's there. So while I believe quality is important, the differentiators, the stuff between the bullet points on the statement of work or whatever you invoice your client or the works that you send them is how you deal with them. The reason why people sign up for us, the reason why we beat out a lot of very large agencies is because we're faster, we're more transparent, we're more communicative, and the work is good. If you only have the work is good, yeah, it's not, don't do it. Don't do the business. So
Yeah.
if you're going to start a business, figure out the process, figure out how to be communicative, figure out how to be transparent with the client. That way they know where their money is being spent. They know what they're going to get at all points of the interaction. You can do that. You can do whatever you want. You can be a plumber, you can be a videographer, you can make websites, you can do run ads. It doesn't matter what it is.
You gotta have all parts of
Yeah.
the recipe.
I love
But
that.
quality is the least important part.
It's
I know
crazy.
that sounds crazy,
Painful.
but it is because they expect it.
Yeah.
Sure, it's not going to be bad.
Yeah.
So if you think your quality is going to suck, obviously don't do it. But if you know that there's room for growth there, don't let that slow you down. As long
Yeah.
as you can do the process, you can do it.
That's good stuff. So Nick, let me do some rapid fire with you real quick.
All right.
So these are the quick ones. All right. First thing, if you weren't doing Fable, and preface this. This doesn't mean you're doing a different job. This doesn't mean you're still no money. No money's not a problem. If you weren't doing Fable Heart Media, what would you be doing?
You mean just for a career? Would I start another business? It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Nah, I'd start something.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to have a job. You have to do something.
Yeah. After having worked in the corporate environment, they'd have to put me in charge, which they wouldn't. So I don't want to work for anyone else. I like working for myself.
Yeah.
I would find a way to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not on a golf course somewhere just playing, finally getting 18 holes in.
No, unless I can make money doing that, which I don't think I can. You've seen me play golf. So yeah, no, I would start a business, but it would have to be a business I'm passionate about. I've got friends who are like, no, buy a car wash or that kind of thing. I just can't. I'm not that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to believe in it
Mhm.
because then it just consumes my life.
Yeah.
So I can't let a car wash consume my life.
All right. Dream vacation.
Dream vacation, I would say Vietnam.
You're such a like want
Interesting.
to go to weird places.
Interesting.
Well, I went to Indonesia. I went to Bali.
Yeah.
And I love Asian food, and it's super inexpensive, and it's like Jurassic Park.
We're gonna have Sam and Lauren on the podcast. They
I
have
love
very
that.
different versions
hated that
of,
trip.
of the Thailand trip and all that.
Hated
Uh-huh.
it. Yeah, I go to Vietnam.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's gonna be one that we kept. Okay. Favorite movie?
Forrest Gump.
Really?
Nice.
Did you know there was a girl in my high school? I revealed this one. I was talking to her. She was cute. I was like, yeah, this is great. I'll never forget. Like we were flirting in the class, and then the teacher put on first. We're married and have a kid. The teacher puts on Forrest Gump, and I'll never forget the girl looking at me and be like, I think this movie's so bad. And I was like, okay, I can look past that. And then she goes, it's like, he's like so dumb. And I'm like,
It's awful.
okay. And then she drops the R word, and I'm like,
Nope.
oh boy.
Nope. Not a good fit.
Learned very quick. We interviewed, and I realized she did not vet well.
Yes. Yeah. Got to do that due diligence. Yeah. Forrest Gump's my number one.
And no, I can't know how anybody hates Forrest Gump. Like, you do not like care for the movie, but it's not like the person.
It's not about the cinema, although I like it. It's not about the music, although I like it. It's not about the acting. I just think it's an awesome story.
Yeah.
I watched it when it first came out. Probably shouldn't have because I was young. And I have that whole movie memorized. I've seen it so many times. I just loved it. As a child, that was my favorite movie.
I love
All right.
that.
Where would you rather work? Would you rather work in your home office, outside, or at a coffee shop?
Home office.
Home office.
I'm never going to work in a
Like
building ever again.
We're in a building.
Not even nature.
One, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Blech.
It doesn't make sense from an expense standpoint for me. I'm never going to have an office. I just don't think that makes sense. I mean, maybe one day I will, and people will be like, in that podcast you said. But I really don't think that's in the cards for me. I like the freedom it offers myself as well as the people I work with. So, yeah.
Nice. All right. Would you rather be able to sink 20-foot putts for the rest of your life, one putt, or would you rather be able to like to drive par fours?
20-foot putts.
Every time. Yeah. It's always
Yeah,
gonna be
because you know
putts.
what? I'll drive a par 4 and it'll be 20 feet away and I'll miss it.
I'll miss it It's 4 strokes into the thing. Yeah. Nick, thank you for coming on. We'll have to do a part 2 because there's so
Heck
much
yeah,
more we
there's
can
a
dive
lot.
into. I think you have a lot of great knowledge here. But I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Thank you for letting us invade your house and take your couch and record basically 2
And
episodes.
dropping
because,
knowledge nuggets left and right.
yeah, a lot of good stuff from this. So thanks for coming
Awesome.
on.
Yeah. Thanks for asking me. It was fun.
Awesome. Guys, thanks for joining us. And be sure to check out the Instagram and TikTok for everything else. And we'll be back here next week. Bye. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. If you enjoy the 626 podcast, the best thing you can do for us is to share it with a friend and leave a 5-star review. It helps us a lot to get discovered.
And be sure to check us out on Instagram at 626podcast.